After temporarily closing their factory owing to the coronavirus pandemic, MV Agusta announced this week that they're back in business and that they'll start producing the stunning Rush 1000 in June, with the first units expected to reach customers who've pre-ordered before the end of the month. I saw this bike in the flesh at EICMA last year, as well as at Motorcycle Live in the UK after that, and I have to say it's quite something to look at. In fact, it has to be one of the craziest looking bikes on the market at the moment, and it has the specs to match too. So in today's video, we'll take a look through them in detail and figure out if it's worth the hefty €34,000 price tag. But before we get started, if you're new here and you want to see more of the latest motorcycle news, launches and rumours right here on YouTube, then please do remember to hit subscribe. MV Agusta CEO Timur Sardarov said this week that with the production of the Rush 1000 starting this coming June, we're on the right track with respect to our 5-year industrial plan announced a few weeks ago. As we're breaking new ground in our expansion journey into new segments and new markets, MV Agusta will continue to produce amazing works of exclusive motorcycle art from its headquarters in Italy, remaining true to its heritage of performance, elegance and state-of-the-art technology. I'm sure that this incredibly attractive model will meet the enthusiasm of the proud new owners. And I have to agree that it fits the bill as a work of motorcycle art, but what lays beneath the brand new bodywork is the existing Brutale 1000 RR, with the majority of the chassis, engine, equipment and therefore specs shared. Essentially, the Rush 1000 is a styling exercise in the same way that the Super Veloce is based on the chassis, engine and equipment of their F3 800. But that's not to say it's a disappointment in any way. The Brutale 1000 RR is, after all, currently the world's fastest production naked motorcycle with a top speed of 187 miles per hour. The specs and electronics are up there with the best too, so they've essentially taken their best naked bike and given it a visual treatment that stands out from anything else on the market. The engine borrowed from the Brutale is worth another look. It's a 998cc inline-4 that makes use of Formula One tech in the form of radial valves angled around the combustion chamber in order to improve airflow and combustion efficiency, boosting power as a result. The conrods are titanium, a feature inspired by MotoGP bikes, reducing weight which helps the engine to spin up to 13,000 RPM where its peak power is produced. MV claimed that it's good for an already massive 208 horsepower, but if you opt for the racing kit package, you get an SC Project titanium exhaust system with a carbon heat shield and an ECU remap which will nudge it up to a whopping 212 horsepower. Both the Rush and the Brutale 1000 are capable of 86 pound-feet or 116 Nm of peak torque at 11,000 RPM. That's a touch less than the likes of the Ducati Street Fighter V4, which makes 123 Nm, but it's still pretty competitive and matches it on power. The Rush also shares the same aluminium and steel trellis frame as the Brutale 1000 RR, although there are some CNC machined aluminium parts as well as titanium and carbon fiber components used in order to drop 5 kilograms of weight. That takes the dry weight down to 186 kilograms, or 184 if you go for the race kit, owing to the lighter SC Project exhaust. It's hard to compare wet or curb weights as you can't always be sure that you're comparing like for like, but the Street Fighter V4 comes up a little lighter when comparing the dry weights. The base model is listed as 180 kilograms, whereas the up-spec V4S, which has lighter Marcassini forged aluminium wheels, is listed as just 178 kilograms dry. Once they're fully oiled and fueled, there might not be a great deal in it. The only way to tell which is quicker surely would be to drag race them. Now that's a YouTube video I'd like to make. Equipment is truly top spec on the Brutale 1000 RR and therefore the Rush 1000. Suspension comes in the form of electronically controlled semi-active O-lings both front and rear. The NIX EC fork and EC TTX shock both have electronically adjustable compression and rebound damping, with preload adjusted manually on the fork but electronically on the shock. The semi-active mode will automatically adapt to the riding conditions and riding style, whilst there's also an option to manually override the settings using the switchgear and the TFT dash. There's also an Öhlins electronic steering damper to match. Braking comes in the form of Brembo's radially mounted 4-piston monoblock Stylemma calipers at the front on dual 320mm discs, and there's a single 220mm disc at the rear with a 2-piston Brembo caliper. Forged aluminium 17-inch wheels help to keep weight down, both being shod with Pirelli's Diablo Supercorsa SP tyres. It's also worth noting that the Rush gets the same height-adjustable CNC foot pegs as the Brutale 1000, which means that the rider can dial in their exact preferred position. Electronics are also comprehensive on the Rush and Brutale. There are 4 riding modes of Sport, Race, Rain and Custom. Traction control comes with 8 levels, and Bosch are responsible for the cornering sensitive ABS. There's also cruise control, wheelie control, rear wheel lift control, and launch control to get the best possible start off the line. The Rush also comes with an up and down quick shifter, which is electronically assisted. As with most bikes coming out at the moment, the TFT dash can be connected over Bluetooth to the rider's phone. This allows for customization of the riding modes and suspension through the MV Ride app, and you can also download data from your rides as well as use the TFT dash to navigate. Lastly, there's an adaptive cornering headlight. This makes use of lean angle data to illuminate the inside of the corner in order to improve visibility at night, which should make for safer riding. The unit used here appears to be the JW Speaker 8791, which would cost you around 500 quid standalone should you wish to add it to your own bike. So that's the technical information, but really this bike is all about the looks, with MV using what they call a drag racing aesthetic. It definitely has an aggressive overall look, and although a little busier than I personally like my bikes, it certainly catches your attention. This was one of the most crowded bikes at EICMA last year, and from what I've seen, the reaction to the way it looks has been pretty positive. The headlight defines the front end, and although the round shape is more traditional than you might expect on a bike of this genre, it might well be as a result of them using that third-party adaptive cornering headlight. But personally, I think it works, and with so many modern performance naked bikes going down the angry insect route, it really helps to distinguish the Rush. The round headlight is mirrored at the other end with a smaller circular taillight that's wrapped in a carbon fibre shroud. This is one of my favourite parts of the bike, and almost certainly looks like it took some inspiration from the Super Veloce, which has a similar tail light and was launched a year or so prior to the Rush in concept form. The subframe is absolutely tiny, giving it that stubby drag racing back end, although it looks pretty optimistic for 2-up riding. Handily, there's a carbon cover for when it's not in use. The tank and bodywork look pretty much the same as the Brutale, but the red leading edge on the winglets really brings attention to them as a feature. There are also plenty of bits of CNC and carbon detail which elevate the Rush as a special bike. Whereas the Brutale has 4 exhausts with 2 either side, the Rush has twin cans on the right. And although I like the mix of titanium and carbon used here, there's something pretty awesome about the Brutale from the rear. So perhaps that's one area in which I prefer that bike. But I've saved the best for last, and that's the carbon disc wheel cover. As I've already said, the idea of this bike was to take the Brutale and make it into a drag racer, and I think this is the boldest design decision to take it in that direction. MV claimed that it has aerodynamic benefits, reducing drag coefficient to improve straight line speed, but almost certainly it's 99% there as a piece of crazy styling that makes for quite the talking point. I highly doubt we'll see a carbon wheel cover on another production bike anytime soon. Just 300 units of the MV Agusta Rush 1000 will be produced, with the cost starting at €34,000, which is just over £30,000 by today's exchange rate. For a bit of context, that's €4,000 more than the Brutale 1000 RR, but 9,000 less than the super top spec Brutale 1000 Serie Oro. Is it worth it? I'd love to know what you think in the comments below. On the one hand, it's a heck of a lot of money, but on the other, it's a pretty special looking bike and limited to just 300 units. And 34 grand doesn't look all that bad when set against Ducati's Superleggera V4, which starts at €100,000. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and if you're new here and you want to see more videos like this, hit subscribe and I'll catch you next time.